everybody. Welcome to our panel on Vamily and the World of Darkness. Thank you for sticking with us through technical difficulties. We really apologize. So first off, I want to say thank you to Drive-Thru RPG and Astral Tabletop for sponsoring this weekend. Super huge. We are also raising money still for Black Girls Code and Blind Cat Rescue. There should be a link coming into the chat in a moment for this. And if you'll give me just a second, we will get started. Let's have our panelists introduce themselves. Primogen.
Right. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm Chris, the Primogen. The camera's over there, right? I do lore videos on YouTube, more or less. That's pretty much my thing. So I'm very happy to be here, and I love being part of the Vamily. It's going to be great talking about them today.
And Jack.
Yes, I'm Jack, otherwise known as the Law by Night podcast guy, similar to the Primogen. I do a weekly podcast that sort of breaks down Vampire the Masquerade lore. It's aimed as primarily for beginners wanting to get into it, but there's also stuff in there that old-time fans will appreciate as well. And again, I'm just very grateful to be part of this surprisingly inviting community.
And Khaldoun, if you would like to introduce yourself. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Oh, we might still be having technical difficulties. Sorry, everyone. Oh, no. Khaldoun is a writer for World of Darkness. Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you. Uh-oh. Thank you, everyone, for your patience in our technical difficulty. I am Ellie Collins. I am the storyteller for ATL by night, and I do a bunch of stuff around the Vamily, just general content creation. So first, I would like to just jump us off with how you got into Vampire, and we can go in the same order.
Right.
Primogen?
Yeah. Right. This is probably not gonna. Yeah, it's half transparent. I managed to dig out my old original. This is the revised edition Vampire the Masquerade core rule book, which I found when I was. I honestly don't remember how old I was. I think I was somewhere around 13 or 14, because that kind of lines up with publication dates. And I just saw the green marble cover in the role playing section of my local gaming store. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get the Star Wars role playing game and something else. That looks neat. I looked through it. I saw some pictures. I was like, this looks okay. And then I read it, and I was like, Star Wars, I don't care about that anymore. Just I grew up that day and got into Vampire. And I played it so much for the next 5 or 6 years, and then it vanished. I think I just stopped hanging with the people who I played it with. And then a couple of years back, I went, hey, what's going on with World of Darkness? And V5 is out. So got back into it again, quite a lot more.
And what about you, Jack?
I suppose out of everybody here, I'm the newest to the community and to the game as a whole. A couple of years ago, I was playing a video game called Vampire, which, looking back, takes a lot of influence from World of Darkness. Like, I'm surprised they haven't got into any legal trouble, actually. But anyway, as I was really enjoying that game, like trying to get all the achievements and things, and whilst I was wrapping that game up, I was trying to find like reviews and critiques that people have done, just to satiate that thirst, pun intended. And a lot of people online kept comparing it to an indie title called Bloodlines, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and I decided to give it a go. It was on sale at GOG for £3 English, which is remarkably cheap. And I just fell in love with the setting almost immediately. I can remember I did the little quiz to try and determine which clan you were, and I was a Tremere. And again, I was enjoying that and trying to find as much as I can on that. I was just, and because of all the different things I was looking at some point, LA by Night, the ongoing web series actual play thing, appeared on my YouTube feed, because I was aware through bits of research and things that Bloodlines was based on the tabletop role-playing game, and I decided I'll give watching this LA by Night thing a go. And first episode in, I was just mesmerized by it, which is weird because I've traditionally been opposed to tabletop role-playing games, kind of a sacrilegious thing to say live like this, but I grew up with stereotypes, so I only had a particular vision in mind. But there was something really captivating about these people just playing this game and taking on the role of these characters. And I decided I want to give this a bit of a go. And I've dug out my V5 copy, and through various Facebook groups and things, trying to find out, like trying to play games with people, and again, more research, lots of buying of books. And at some point, I decided that I was going to do a podcast breaking down the lore, because I noticed that there was not a great deal amount of V5 stuff. Granted, it hasn't been out for that long, but a lot of the things you could find on YouTube were more sort of in the revised era setting. So I just wanted to try and improve things to make it a bit more accessible for people, and sort of led me to where I am now.
Nice. And Khaldoun, how'd you get in this crazy world?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear
okay.
you.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, I had that a little bit of an issue there. Well, I guess the first edition vampire book was the first one that I started playing with in the early 90s. I worked at a role-playing game store actually in Maryland called Dream Wizard. It kind of hit the shelf and was sitting around. And I guess someone maybe had brought it from Gen Con or something. It was, very unique. And I don't even know where that copy of the game is now, because I soon upgraded to the hardcover green marble one from the paperback that I had. I've been playing Vampire ever since. LARPing since 92, 93, something like that, and writing since 2000, 99, around there. Off and on where I could. And I've been trying to get more involved in the community, as V5 seems to really have brought this community to life in a way it really wasn't before. In the past, most community events were, through LARPing mostly, actually, like live action role playing. And I've always been a very avid and active live action role playing player and storyteller. So it's really nice that the community has really come alive online with all these actual plays, maybe inspired by LA by Night. That's my cat screaming. It's been great.
Awesome. And yeah, for me, I think most people that have seen me in multiple interviews already know this story, but I got diagnosed with OCD at 12. And I thought I was going crazy. And the other goth kids in my English class were like, well, if you think you're crazy, you want to come hang out with us? You can play a crazy vampire. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but okay. And they helped me build a Malkavian, and I'm still playing that character to this day. It was just the group of goth girls in my English class wanted to help me feel better about a mental health diagnosis, and I got brought into vampire that way, which is probably the closest to an actual siring I could have gotten. So in Vampire the Masquerade, and most of the people in the chat probably already know this term, but for those that don't, on LA by Night, a phrase was coined, Vamily, as in vampire family, and it's become a hashtag that we as the community have really adopted for ourselves and taken about. So let's just do a general cheesy, and we'll go in the same order. What does the Vamily mean to you, and what does the World of Darkness itself mean to you?
The Vamily, that's a tough question to answer. Like, I think for me personally, the Vamily is just this kind of slapdash community of old and young across a lot of different social platforms, and basically just a whole bunch of people united by their love for the World of Darkness. I want to go even as far as to say that even if we have a separate tag for werewolf, I think it's Wolfpack, I'm not entirely sure, they're still technically part of the Vamily, in my opinion. Because it's just that there's this love for the very a little too real at times setting that is the World of Darkness, that's just so close to our own, that takes everything that is human and just takes it to its point. And we're united by this love for the modern kind of gothic pulp sort of storytelling. We may not always look eye to eye on certain topics. It depends on where on the internet you are. But it's very easy to find another member of the family. You just gotta drop a few keywords and you'll find them right away. And always extremely welcoming and kind and supportive. I've had nothing but love from the family since I started. I wouldn't have continued if I hadn't. It's been a great community for me.
And Jack?
Yeah, kind of be.
There you go. Sorry, you froze for me for a second.
Oh, ooh. Yeah, I'm sort of going to be parroting a lot what the Primogen said, but it's I find it really, really unusual that how friendly, accepting, and inclusive this community is as a whole. And I say that because it's essentially just a flock of goths, and stereotypically, we shouldn't be this friendly.
I don't know. Goths are
And
some of the most friendly people to me.
I know that's just something I've noticed as well, and I didn't explain because get very soft, very quick. I've never really felt that I have belonged in any group of society, whether that's in my field of work as a professional outside of the podcast, whether it's a friend at school or college or whatever. That I've always felt like some outsider. Part of that's the fact that part of that to me is the fact that I'm autistic and I'm just aware that I'm just a little bit odd in general. But then again, who isn't? I haven't shared the same hobbies with practically anyone that I know to some extent. I've always been very nerdy and geeky. And, growing up as a child, those are sort of like weird, bad things like, ew, get away. And yet, being part of a community that enjoys playing sad, depressing, lost characters, whether you're a vampire, a werewolf, a ghost, like trying to find out your place in the world, trying to find where you belong. It's again all really depressing stuff, but it's as the Primogen said, everyone is just for the most part incredibly inviting and supportive and just trying to help everybody fit in. And it's really easy to find people to play with, again, with a clever use of hashtags on social media or just various Facebook groups. People happily and willingly ask you questions. Everybody's incredibly supportive of what you do, no matter whether you are a well-known large content creator or you're just starting out. I guess really the family is just an extension of one's own social group family sort of thing. To me, at least, it's really touching and wholesome.
What about you, Khaldoun?
Well, I guess in its latest incarnation, I mostly found it on Twitter. I guess was really where the family was made real to me. When I started seeing the term being used shortly after V5 and LA by Night started to become popular, then I thought pop up in my Twitter feed. I wasn't really a very avid Twitter user. I actually had my account locked for years, just because that's safer when you're working, and so I would see it in my feed pretty regularly and interact with it where I could.
Oh, are you froze for us, Khaldoun? Oh, there you are, I think. We have a La Sombra in our midst somewhere, and there's too much black behind me to like confirm that it's not me.
I've been a lot.
Oh, there you are. You're back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. You
was I
froze for us a
gone?
little bit. You froze for a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I guess just on Twitter, I try to stay active on there, and it's great to see that the social media has allowed this community to grow, and that so many people much younger than me are interacting with the game. So it's great.
And for me, I found the family hashtag shortly after it was said on LA by Night, because I had gotten into LA by Night pretty early. And much like Jack, it very much has become a family in its own way and been this really welcoming community. Like like all families, like we have fights, we have addition wars, we argue, but there is something to be said about we've all agreed to share these dark, depressing stories together. And with that, you kind of start off from this like place of understanding with each other. Like, I don't get along with every single Malkavian player ever, but because I'm like a career Malkavian, other Malkavian players, we start with that general understanding, and it's nice to come into that with people. So it very much has become this welcoming community because we all, you know, have this same place that we're starting from. We like to tell sad stories together, and we like to feel very my thoughts on Vampire is that it's ultimately a story about hope because we're hoping to fight the beast, we're hoping to maintain some shred of humanity, we're hoping to go further, and there's a lot of familial connection with each other in that hope. So that's what it means for me. um, so going into just kind of our jobs with the family, why do you create the content that you create? What made you want to create content for this, Chris?
Right. Well, when I started out, I looked at a lot of the kind of lore video contents that was out there. Obviously, Matthew Dawkins, the Gentleman Gamer, was the one instantly suggested to me on YouTube. And I realized that I have a I have a history with Let's Plays, which didn't really take off or go anywhere. But I was very used to the 10-minute formula, like making 10-minute content. So I was like, maybe that's a niche I can fill. I can do 10-minute videos on very like hyper focused stuff in the world of darkness because I personally like to digest information like that. I saw Jordan, the PH is silent, who does like D&D videos,
Mhm.
and he works very much like that. So that's why I started. I saw this niche and I was like, I also want to learn everything that I missed because when I was younger I couldn't afford the books. I had a friend who had all the books, and he was very choosy what you got to read because he didn't want to ruin the surprise of anything. So now that I'm an adult and I can make I can make my own money, screw you, I'm gonna read everything. So that's how it started. I started buying books from Drive Through RPG, reading them, and just let's digest this and put it into an easy to consume medium, I suppose.
What about you, Jack?
Yeah, sort of expanding what I was saying at the beginning, when I was really beginning to um, dive into the lore and try and learn as much as I could. Again, with the Primogens, one of the things that popped up in my YouTube feed very quickly was the Gentleman Gamer's Guide to Vampires. And one of the things that compared to a lot of the other themes that were on there, one of the things that really stuck out to me was the fact that he got into character and the fact that it was like, it always felt like you were having a conversation, that you were the fledgling neonate that was just starting out in the world. And he was like the grander elder just who's seen and done it all. And the way that he did things has always had there was an interesting twist to what he did. It was a bit of established lore, and some of it was his own interpretation, which I've said many times on social media and elsewhere. I found that a little bit inspiring. There was some of the Primogen stuff that I was watching as well that I felt was really awesome. I just love the direction that you've taken with that. There was also Outstar's lore videos where she specifically focused in on the V5 stuff because it was the most newest and most up to date and relevant. And I can remember watching all of these different things one day. I'm pretty sure I was having my breakfast one day and I was just listening to Outstar talk about V5 Finbloods. And although I had read it in the book previously, um, at this point I'd gotten 20 or the 20th anniversary edition, or 4th edition, whatever. And the changes between the Finblood in that version to the newer version was very interesting. It was like it was own clan. And nobody else had discussed this. And combined with the elements that Matthew Dawkins did, the stuff that Primogen did, the stuff that Outside did, I was just thinking, well, why don't I try and add to this? Why don't I try and cover more up-to-date stuff, some V20 stuff and V5 stuff, the two most up-to-date versions at the time of this stream recording. And I had been thinking about doing something that was content creaty-ish already, because I am working freelance in audio production, and at this point I wasn't exactly doing much, and I felt that my skills and abilities were getting a bit stagnant. So I gave it a go. I wrote a few episodes in advance. I started recording them, and I was uploading them onto a YouTube page and putting them on other podcasty places, because everybody had their own preference, because each site offered something, various different levels of accessibility. And I say this often, but I'm genuinely surprised just how quickly people just latched onto it and they wanted more. The feedback I was getting was good. People were liking it, people were giving helpful suggestions. A lot of people kind of say that in the first few episodes, like the music was like generally too loud and my voice is too soft, for example. And going back to the whole family thing, people were being very supportive, trying to help me grow and get better. And that's just kind of the attitude I've taken, just accepting the good criticism and some of the bad stuff to an extent, and just trying to make things as easy to digest, because there's about 30 years of lore and it can be a bit overwhelming for people. And there's this pressure that some people have all these books, and some people think I've got to read all of these books to understand this one element. And I just wanted to try and eliminate that, because some people may not be able to afford it. Some people, English isn't their first language, so they may not be able to read all this material. If issues like dyslexia, some people may be visually impaired. So
yeah, I have dyslexia, and your podcast was a huge help to help me get caught up.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, that's just my direction of it, just trying to provide all the up-to-date stuff that I can, whilst making it as entertaining and as engaging and inviting as possible.
Yeah, lowering that barrier of entry. And Khaldoun, you do a bunch of writing. What brought you to writing for it?
Well, I guess I've been very involved in the community as it existed, in the past, in the 90s, and that was very much through, forums and obviously live action role playing, things along those lines. And you could just email people really at White Wolf and such. The current, head of the World of Darkness brand right now, Justin Killey, actually, he was the developer on my very first book for Vampire the Masquerade, which came out in, I think, 2000 or 2001. Which was, Cairo by Night. And, I would work with him again with the, what's now called the Chronicles of Darkness, or the Vampire the Requiem. And now I'm working with him again, in his current incarnation, as funny as that is. And we, I think we've only met in person, once. And that's just, this kind of like virtual life has existed for a long time now. But this is probably the first time where it seems virtual life is, more real than real life now. At least I guess the past decade for me, it seemed that way. Before it was actually virtual. So I guess I've been involved with Vampire, through that 30 years of lore. Since I was a teenager, I guess 15 or 16, running LARPs and then eventually writing books and connecting with the community in this way, through social media, whether it's Twitter or Discord or whatnot, is somewhat new to me. In the past, it was very much through forums, and was kind of this give or take that was almost like I guess personal emails back and forth that everyone could publicly read. Now there's much more of a broader group discussion, and that's very interesting. And YouTube, like I'm glad to see that that video format is still a thing. Like I remember when that first started, and some of my books were the first ones reviewed by the Gentleman Gamer, and that's actually where we first met. I think Mummy was the very first Mummy book, actually. I think he was a big supporter and fan of that line. And I think that's actually how he got into writing, through Mark Linehagen and those Mummy books. So it's kind of interesting that the line between family and writer and the community is still pretty thin, and that now I feel that there's no longer this kind of you're not really part of it unless you're writing the books or something like that. Like I felt that in the past that was kind of the feeling, in a sense, that to be a content creator you had to be putting words on the page, and that's just no longer the case. I think the actual plays, the lore videos, all that stuff is it adds a lot to the game, and it's content that can bring people in because, as you said, not everyone is best suited to reading book after book after book. And to be totally honest, as Jack was saying, you don't need to know all the lore. If your game or your themes are focusing on one specific thing, like a gangrel bloodline or the Second Inquisition, or what it really means to be a vampire or what a monster really is, then you can laser focus on those topics that are going to be of best use for your game. You don't have to dig through House Tremere or some other ancient book. Geez. To get what you need, you have a lot of support. You have this Vamily that's gonna highlight these things, and hopefully a light bulb, a blood-soaked light bulb, will go over your head, and it still bring something fun to the table.
Wonderful. Yeah, and for me, I got into this because I've been a content creator for a long time. I have a horror narrative podcast that's been going for 4 years, doing like a full season of horror stories every year, American Horror Story format. And me and the cast from that have an 8-person home D&D game that we played together that was an entirely homebrewed world, and we would just post like little snippets of what happened in the world, and people wanted us to stream it, but we're all content creators, and so we were like, no, we want this one thing that we haven't turned into a job. And they're like, but we would like to do a tabletop stream, that could be fun. And I was like, well, vampire's coming back around. You guys want to do vampire with me? And I pulled in a few friends and we decided to do ATL by night. And just kind of because there hasn't really been any content for Atlanta since the final nights. So we had this kind of like rich playground where we could take the city as it exists now and kind of figure out where we as a city of Kindred would be post final nights, with how Atlanta has taken care of itself through a lot of trials and tribulations, and what current social problems do we have that we can talk about, and how can we address those. And so we put the show together and launched almost a little over a year ago, and we open to the absolute most wonderful community of support. We had like so many people on our first day just there to be helpful and be kind, and that's continued to want us to produce more and produce more content, because we had a lot of people coming to us from other projects that we had made, like the horror podcast, who knew nothing about vampire, but D&D is the big in vogue right now. So we have another show in production called Mortal's Guide to Darkness, which is bridging the gap between D&D and vampire, to essentially give the one-to-one translation, like, hey, if you prefer playing barbarians, you might want to play a Bruja, and here's why. And so we've kind of taken this approach, since we all come from tabletop, and I'm the one that primarily played vampire the whole time, to kind of help bridge the gaps of the communities to continue growing vampire. So I think since we all kind of touched on it a little bit, and we do have some wonderful questions coming in, I'm going to jump to my last question for the panel, which is what would you like to see happen in vampire going forward, either in the game canon, production wise, World of Darkness wise? Just where would you like to see it go?
Every time we go around, I'm like, God, they had so many better answers than I did to these things. But what would I like to see happening in Vampire and the Vamily? Well, I really want to see the community grow. I want to see it keep growing. Because I believe at one point World of Darkness was definitely rivaling Wizard. Well, it wasn't Wizard of the Coast at that time, but definitely two heavy sluggers fighting each other. And I'd just love to see more people coming into the fandom and bringing their ideas and the creativity to the setting. I would love to see World of Darkness reach out to content creators in Asia, in Africa, or people who are educated on these matters, because I know, Jack, you've been covering both the Kindred of the East, or the Kuei-jin, or however we're going to call them, as well as the lost the term right now, the ones in
A Liabom, the
the
African ones.
libo, yeah, exactly. And I would love to see that handled tastefully, if that's possible. Like, I haven't covered that content because I was scared of covering it myself, because obviously they have a little bit of a history in the setting. But also, I would love to see more about the meta plot, which I know was a thing with V5 that was not scrapped, but kind of pushed below the surface for a very good reason, because it got so complex by the time of revise that it was this barrier of getting into the game. But as a veteran, I really like hearing that Justin Achille is back on the team. Gives me a lot of hope that there's going to be this meshing of old stuff that will appeal to people who are veterans in the fandom, and new stuff which will appeal to newer players. And I think it's possible to do that, because I think also with V5's launch, there was this rift, a completely unnecessary rift between the old guard of vampire players and who White Wolf at the time wanted to attract, which is completely unnecessary. Everyone can play V5. It's perfectly fine. But I would like to see more stuff for that. Information on the Sabbat, some of the characters from the meta plot I would love to learn more about. But it's a new time. It's we're living in 2021. You can't just shove out books, 4 or 5
Yeah.
books every year. It's not possible anymore. So basically, just I mean, I love Cults of the Blood Gods. I love Chicago by Night, the 5th edition book. I'm so looking forward to all the other content that's coming. So honestly, I just want more. That's what I want. I want more books.
More.
Yeah, more.
All right, Jack.
Yeah, just again, just parroting the Primogen, just more of a little bit of everything. If they do choose to expand into other territories, like hiring writers and people who have experience of those cultures and things, just to make things more appropriate and sensitive. Again, I'd like to see more extensions of the meta plot and see what the writers can do, and perhaps introduce some of the more obscure bloodlines and bring them to the light a bit more. Again, most recently with the Cult of the Blood God, sort of I'm going to say mishmash, but I don't mean it in a negative connotation, sort of bringing all the necromantic bloodlines together under one banner. So again, making a very difficult clans to play that bit easier to get into. And I'd also kind of want to see some more video games as well, and some people may disagree with me on that, but as I mentioned earlier, my introduction to vampire was through video games, and with the recent visual novel The Werewolf Apocalypse on Heart of the Forest has ignited an interest in me in Werewolf the Apocalypse, so much so that most of my Christmas presents were a load of werewolf books. And I just want to bring those elements to my podcast as well, and including the other brands of Wraith changing, which would be nice to see those expanded upon in the future as well. I can understand that it might not happen for a while because some of those books came out, the 20th anniversary editions anyway, came about a year or 2 years ago. So maybe not, there won't be any like 5th edition versions soon, but yeah, just to sum up easily, is more.
Khaldoun, what would you like to see?
Well,
Without spoiling
saying,
anything that you might be doing.
So despite the stuff I'm working on, I guess like beyond that, like I know there's a lot of stuff that's been announced that I feel is going to scratch the itch that Jack and the Primogen were talking about. Hopefully, you know, you never know. But as far as what I'd like to see, yeah, on some level, I reiterate what has been said. Not so much more content, but definitely I would like to see a broader and more diverse, coalition of writers and faces in the community. I know it's Black History Month, and I feel that Black and African American, creators and players have brought a lot to this game and a different perspective. And I would like to see more of them as writers, creators, and players. And some of the best I'd say actual plays and streams out there are brought to us by Black members of our community, at least here in America, and hopefully all over the world. And I'd like to see more of that. And obviously, as Arab American, Palestinian American, vampire, as odd as it is, like at one point, Vampire had like 3 or 4 Palestinian American writers like working on it at one time, which was probably the most in the whole RPG community. and not just the Arab books or the Muslim books, but like mainline books, which was wonderful, and I'm glad to carry on that tradition on some level. And I feel that Vampire and the World of Darkness, on some level, it's not that it has a debt, but definitely has something of a responsibility. As Primogen was saying, the World of Darkness in the past has tackled some sensitive subjects, geopolitical subjects and parts and regions of the world in not the most sensitive manner, which was par for the course in the 90s. And I feel they were better than other games, but certainly not up to the par that we expect nowadays. And I feel that, Paradox, very large company, has the resources really to bring to bear to, bring that sensitivity and bring those products and those ideas and that representation to another level. And not just through sensitivity reading, but obviously through, hiring the writers that, know the subject matter the best. And to just, name check Justin one more time is, I'm also very happy that he's back on the product. And one of the reasons is I feel he really feels that responsibility as well. That, he was, part of White Wolf back in the day when it wasn't, able to make the, the best decisions, or didn't even know that it wasn't making the best choices and representation. And so I feel that, he really wants to bring it to that higher level. And, I respect that. And, I'm looking forward to, the stuff that's coming up.
And I would agree with everything that all of the guys have said, just because we need to get to our questions. My short version of just something I would like to see it is I would like more, this might sound strange, I would like more content that I don't like. Because I feel like when the Battle Royale got announced, so many people were angry, but I really like Battle Royale games. And I feel like if our community is going to grow, we can't keep making the same kind of content for the same kind of people. So I would like to see the content branch out into things that can capture different communities, especially with the video games. There's so many genres of video games that we can touch different genres with it if we allow this community to be more than just a flock of goths. I would love to see a group of football players that just really get into Vampire and they're playing a vampire football team. Like, that would be wonderful. That would be fun. Let them have that. So I would just like to see community diversity push through diversity of types of content. So let's get into these questions, and we don't have to go round robin with them because there is a lot, so we can just like hit through them. And if you got a response, we'll do that. When you play or run Vampire the Masquerade, do you think of the Kindred protagonist as heroic? Personally, I do not. I think we are villains trying to be heroic.
Agreed.
Yeah, there are no heroes in the World of Darkness.
No.
It's just people. Villains maybe, but no, I think of people, good and bad. Like, there's no black and white in World of Darkness, in my opinion.
Agreed. There was two specifically.
Large...
Oh yeah.
So I was just going to say it's just one large murky shade of grey.
The world of grayness.
Yep.
Sorry, Outstar had a brilliant idea in chat, and I had to respond of a drag queen chronicle.
I agree.
Two quick questions for Primogen. Will you be doing more V5 content or product reviews? And when is your series on Orpheus starting?
Absolutely. Orpheus will be starting before summer, I promise. I still have not unboxed this game.
Oh gosh.
I've been so busy that I have not been able to do that. So that will happen soon. I promise I will do more V5 stuff. I've just been incredibly busy. I'm sorry. I love V5.
That is okay. Since these games can be deeply personal, do you think there is a place for professional counseling to use these games, or should it remain something familial and informal amongst close friends? I personally think that there is a huge boon to using vampire in counseling because of the sheer amount of topics we touch on. What about y'all?
I agree. I believe that there's some places in the States, I might have just made this up, they're using Dungeons and Dragons for kids for similar things,
Yeah,
just to
yeah.
get them to think about your various different aspects. So I think it can be used again, sensitively, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it would be, it could well be. I mean, I generally believe that we use these role-playing games as ways of expressing ourselves and processing bits of ourselves that we may be familiar of, and sometimes we discover new things about ourselves. So I think for sure they definitely can be.
What do you think, Khaldoun?
Oh, sorry.
Oops.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think any game can be used, in a therapeutic way. And yes, I know that in the U.S. there is some use of Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games to help autistic and other, children with, forming social bonds in a group dynamic. And I guess the structure of Dungeons and Dragons and a similar role-playing game makes it easier for them to conceptualize the way they're supposed to interact with the other players, socially, which I guess is, really wonderful. I guess vampire in this particular theme, I could see it's definitely been therapeutic for me. I don't know if I'm qualified to say it's going to be therapeutic for everyone, but I definitely feel that darker games can let us heal some things.
Yeah, I mean, I started this game. I started this community as a need for therapy, and playing a Malkavian let me feel like my diagnosis could give me power instead of being something that was wrong with me. Because I definitely played my character with OCD because I was 13, and having moments where my obsessive counting, because I have a lot of counting and pattern recognition, it got us out of a building before it exploded because I remembered exactly where there was a window that we could get to. And so it has a lot of potentially therapeutic benefits, and you can talk to your medical professional about it.
Yeah. I just think, personally, I think it's absolutely a powerful tool for that. I think it always has to be on the table, though. Like if it's
Yeah.
going to be, if I know people might sometimes bring trauma with them to the table because they want to deal with that, and I think role playing is an excellent way to deal with it. But it is also a communal thing you're doing. A lot of people are playing online with people they don't know today, which is completely different from when I started playing. And in that regard, I think the consent rules are
Mhm.
excellent. Session zero rules. I'd like to explore this kind of thing because I would like to have an outlet, or I would like to experiment with this kind of idea. If everyone's on board with that, I think it's excellent.
And Gehenna Gaming does have a wonderful resource on their site for a pack of consent. It's various consent forms that really go into the nitty gritty to help you have that conversation.
It's good stuff.
As content creators, what considerations do you take when trying to make your content accessible to your disabled audiences? Are there aspects of accessibility that you wish you knew more about? My short answer on this is I really wish that there was better captioning tools for Twitch. The ones that exist either don't work that well, or they're really complex to set up. They're very difficult, and with a show that is improv, it would take us an additional 2 to 3 weeks just to caption the programs, and now YouTube doesn't do auto captioning. So for people like me that are hard of hearing, not having captions sucks. So I just try and make sure that our audio is always the cleanest, and I try to keep my players cognizant of not covering their mouths when they're talking. And then our other shows that are launching, since those are scripted, they will have captions. What do y'all do?
I mean, I would love. Oh, sorry.
So you first.
All right. I mean, I would actually. I've been considering several times now to maybe hire someone to do closed captions for my videos, especially in Spanish, and maybe French, because I know there's a huge Spanish-speaking community in Latin America who are hardcore World of Darkness players. I would love to reach out to them and be able to provide them help if they don't speak English, for example, that well, or read English. And in general, I agree with you. The captioning system. I use YouTube, which is mildly better, but yeah, I would definitely. I would want to work out my captioning more. I do voice. I try to speak clearly because, again, like you said, it helps with hearing. But I could do more. Absolutely.
Jack?
Yeah, it's sort of extending on to that. I wish YouTube had better captioning, because I know some of my stuff it does, some of it doesn't. But I mean, I've always tried to speak very clearly. I mean, when I'm putting on take on the role of the character I portray, it just makes things extra clear. I put things on different podcasting places, partly because of trying to get as many people to listen to it, but also different interfaces work with different levels for different people, like in terms of accessibility, what they can handle, what they can't. I am working with a small collection of people on my Discord server that I'm trying to put together like transcript forms of each of the different episodes, so people who may not be able to hear everything can still be able to participate in it. And I have my own scripts and notes and things, but I ad lib bits and I take things out, put things in, and the format in which I do things isn't necessarily user friendly to other people. But yeah, it was again with Primogen, I'd love to be able to work with different people from different parts of the world, just to again make things a bit more accessible to everyone.
Khaldoun, anything from a writing side for accessibility that you would like to see?
Well, I mean, I guess from my perspective, I think the most what I do as far as accessibility and what I'd like to see done more is on just issues of sensitivity, basically. And I think V5 in particular has done a pretty good job of that lately, and that's really, I guess there's like some level of accessibility when it comes to people's physical limitations, obviously, what they can hear and how they can experience the content. And then there's also a level of accessibility when it comes to what people I guess are mentally and psychologically prepared for, and what can I guess harm people. And being aware and cognizant of that, I think brings allows you to bring more people into the game. And it doesn't mean you have to avoid or downplay dark subject matter. It just means that you have to prepare your audience when you're about to introduce it, and how you're going to introduce it. And most importantly, I feel you have to give your audience some expectation about how dark subject matter is used in games. That's the really important thing, is putting dark subject matter into a game just to have it, just to say, you were that dark one, isn't, that interesting to me, nor do I think it's necessarily appropriate to just put out there. It's very important to give it context and to let players and storytellers know, if you're going to use this, these are kind of, the reasons why to use it and why it can be important and, add something to your game.
Wonderful. And we've got two more real quick. What advice would you give to someone running their first ever VTM game and perhaps has performance anxiety about not being interesting or fun and worrying about turning new players off from the game? And my advice on that is performance anxiety wise, one, you're going to suck and it's going to be fine. We all suck our first time out. It's fine. And the other is don't worry about turning the players off, because Vampire is a collaborative storytelling situation where half the story is you, half of it is them. So as long as you're all involving each other and staying communicative and building a story together, you don't got to worry about that.
And people are going to forget rules or get things wrong, and there's going to be hiccups here and there, and it's just don't, I mean, obviously try and make sure everybody's enjoying it and everybody's happy, but if this is a slip up here, or you're not quite in character properly, or you stutter, or you can't remember what you're going to say, it's fine. It's not a race, it's not even a marathon, it's just a pleasant walk. Just take your time, just take it all in, and just your players will appreciate what you're doing, because you're taking time out of your life to provide this game for everybody. And as Ellie said, it's a collaborative process. It's everybody sort of working together, like a bit of ad lib drama, I guess. And you're all going to enjoy, because I mean, that's why you're all here. And if and with just repetition, you'll perhaps build a bit more confidence, and be more comfortable with the system and know how your players work, so you can able to cater things appropriately. And yeah, and as Ellie said, we all suck doing it for the first time. You'll do great.
And I'm just gonna cut to the last one. We've got 5 minutes, so we're gonna speed run this one. If you could continuity delete one bloodline, clan, book, splat, or add-on from the World of Darkness, either entirely or replace it with something updated, what would you choose? Personally, I would go back and make the current incarnation of Ravnos how they've always been.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I would replace old Ravnos entirely with the current version.
Oh man, I'm going to be hated by everyone, but I would remove V20, the rule book.
Gasp!
Because
I'm on board with you.
Because it was never intended to be an introduction to Vampire the Masquerade, and it is not a good introduction to it.
It's a chunky introduction if it's your first book.
Yeah, and it reveals way too much that you don't need to know. The Bali's supposed to be secret. But sorry.
Jack, what would you remove, change?
I don't think the true Brujah bring anything to it. It's just a way to try and get people to play mage.
I feel like we're ending this panel with what's going to make everybody mad at us. Let's do this.
Good last question. Well, I mean, yeah, I think the current Ravnos is wonderful. I think it's really, obviously that's a kind of a bit of. I mean, I didn't write the new Ravnos. I advised with some of it, then I think the writers did an incredible job. So I agree that it's a great take on the clan. As someone who's had, a true Brujah named after him, because as a card and in the Cower by Night book, I can say that, yeah, it's not my favorite clan, and that it was done to kind of, yank my chain.
Oh my God.
Part one and all that, no comment.
All right. So thank you guys so much for joining us. After this panel, you can tune into Horror in Media, which has Mark Q. Anderson, Josephine McAdam, Matthew Dawkins, David Castro, Michael Barker, uncovering the darkness in horror-themed literature, film, television, streaming series, and tabletop games. Remember that you can still donate to the charities to support Black Girls Code and the Blind Cat Rescue. Donation links should either be going in chat now or in a minute. So let's go around real quick. Tell everybody where they can find you online. Primogen?
Crap, it's me. Yes, I'm the Primogen. You can find me on YouTube as the Primogen, and you can find me on Twitter as the Primogen, although you probably don't want to go there. That's basically where I am. I'm also on... I'm going to be playing tomorrow at the game that I... Oh my God, never mind. I'll be here tomorrow, but you can find me on YouTube. The Primogen. Oh my God, sorry.
That's okay. Jack.
Once more, I am the Lore by Night podcast guy. You can find me on Twitter at Lore by Night VTM, or one word. Instagram's the same, but it's got underscores in it. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube and anywhere else you would naturally listen to podcasts.
Khaldoun.
You can find me online on Twitter, I guess, at K Khalil. That's just my last name with the K before it. That's mostly it. And, in your book, that's it.
And in the books. And you can find me on Twitter at Ellie_A_Collins or at ATL by Night. ATL by Night airs every Tuesday at 8 p.m. We are 2 episodes away from the finale for season 4 right now. So that's very exciting. And then you can catch me later tonight at 8 p.m. in our Call of Cthulhu, the Magnus Archives game. That is with me, Cynthia Marie, Alex Ward, and Jacob Burgess, story told by Ian Muller of Gehenna Gaming. So check us out there. Thank you guys again so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful time. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Au revoir.